All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're tearing down the absolute core mechanics of business survival. We all know the buzzwords, right? Capital, deficit, inflation. But today we're going to map out exactly how these forces collide to either build a massive empire or, well, trigger a total reckoning.
And this graphic here perfectly illustrates our game plan. It splits our journey into two distinct halves. On the left side, you've got the internal financial foundation. That's all the mechanics happening inside the walls of the business. And on the right, the external market forces. That's the wild, totally unpredictable environment the business is forced to operate in. Mastering how the internal survives the external, that is literally the entire secret to business.
So we're going to track this life cycle across four main stages. 1. Sparking the business engine. 2. The financial balancing act. 3. Surviving external market forces. And 4. Accountability and final outcomes. Let's get to it.
Stage 1. Sparking the business engine. The initial human element and financial fuel. Every business begins with a human element, and of course, the distribution of risk. On one side, you have the entrepreneurs. They're the ones starting the business, taking on that heavy operational burden and executing the vision. But to actually get any runway, they usually rely on shareholders. These are the folks who own parts of the company by buying shares, providing that vital financial backing without carrying the day-to-day operational stress.
Now, the exact fuel required to get this whole engine turning over? That's capital. This is that absolutely vital initial money invested into the business to fuel growth and operations. Keep in mind, this isn't revenue. This is the upfront cash you need to secure infrastructure, hire your talent, and actually build a product way before a single customer ever even walks through the door.
Moving on to Stage 2, the financial balancing act, the daily operational struggle.
Once a business is up and running, you have to ask yourself a constant, nagging question in your day-to-day operations. What actually happens when the financial scales tip the wrong way?
It's the ultimate balancing act. On one side, you've got revenue. That's your income from sales, the lifeblood of the company. But on the opposing side is the deficit. This happens when your expenses actively exceed your income. It's a super precarious position to be in. If you're burning cash faster than you're making it, that deficit immediately starts eating away at the very capital you started with.
All right, Stage 3, surviving external market forces, navigating the wild unknown.
Because here's the thing, even with a totally flawless internal setup, a business is completely exposed to three massive external threats that dictate the market landscape. We're talking about inflation, monopolies, and imports.
First up is inflation, a storm that silently raises prices over time. It eats away at purchasing power, drives up the cost of raw materials, and means you have to pay your talent more. If a business doesn't have the power to raise its own prices fast enough to keep up with those costs, inflation will aggressively shove them right into a deficit. Then you have monopolies. These occur when just one single seller controls the entire market. When that happens, new businesses aren't just competing on having a better product. No, they are fighting an absolute giant that can manipulate prices, restrict supply chains, and use sheer capital scale to starve competitors right out of the market. And finally, imports. Buying goods from other countries introduces a massive, global scale to local competition. Sure, it's great for consumers looking for lower prices, but it drastically shifts the supply and demand curve for local businesses. You're no longer just competing with the shop down the street. You're up against highly optimized global supply chains.
Which brings us to Stage 4, accountability and final outcomes, the ultimate reality check.
Eventually, every business faces a reckoning. To ensure everything is above board and transparent for shareholders, they go through a two-step process. Step 1 is internal accounting. Step 2, audits. These are strictly independent checks of the company's accounts to verify that revenue is real, deficits are documented accurately, and the company isn't faking its financial health. It forces ultimate accountability. But if those audits reveal that the deficits are just too big to overcome, the company faces bankruptcy. As the quote perfectly puts it, this is a critical financial state where a business is unable to pay its debts. The capital is completely gone, the engine seizes up, and the corporate life cycle essentially comes to a hard stop.
Understanding these core mechanics totally changes how you see the economic world around us. So, looking at your own ventures, or even the companies you invest in, ask yourself, are you building solid capital, or are you quietly drifting toward an insurmountable deficit? Are those businesses actually structured to weather the storm of these external forces? It's definitely something you need to be thinking about.